Today we're diving into a bombshell report from the Mitchell Institute that just dropped, and it's straight up math saying that the US Air Force is way underpowered for a real fight over Taiwan. Their new report, called Strategic Attack, maintaining the Air Force's capacity to deny enemy sanctuaries, they're not exactly into brevity, but the report hits hard. The current plans for just 100 B-21 Raiders and 185 F-47 NJADs, or the Mega Chad, as we like to call it here on the channel, aren't enough. They say that the US Air Force needs 200 B-21s and 300 F-47s. That's 500 plus 6th generation platforms total to punch through China's fortress and deny them those safe mainland launch zones that they would be using to take down Taiwan. So we're talking historic bomber shortages, PLA missile barrages from deep inside of China, and even Australia's defense minister echoing this alarm at Munich about Beijing's massive post-World War II scale buildup with zero explanation as to why they're doing it, which we'll get into here in a second. But let's listen to that Australian defense minister and see what he had to say.
But the other point I'd really make is, the single big factor which defines, I think, the strategic complexity of the world as Australia faces it.
Is it just me, or does that microphone look very tiny? Maybe he just has big hands.
Is the biggest conventional military build-up that we've seen in the world since the end of the Second World War being undertaken by China, but being done so without strategic reassurance, in as much as there really isn't an explanation to those of us else in the world as to what this is for, what is its purpose. That is what has made the world most complicated. And obviously that predates the last 14 months. That's really a process that's been going on for the last 2 decades. That is what is challenging, and that is what's changing the circumstances that we face.
China's like, oh, the massive military buildup? No, we just really love air shows. We love building J-36s and J-50s for air shows. Oh, wait, that base on that reef that goes down 200 feet into the ocean and embeds into coral? No, that's not a Dr. Evil layer. No, that's just for research. That's just for whale research. We just really love orcas here in China. But stay to the very end of the video because I'll break down these stealth beasts on both sides of the table here, the inside tactics that will be going down if something happens with Taiwan, with the bombers, with the extra F-47s, and without. But at this point, this math is brutal, so I hope you're strapped in because things are about to get steamy with what this showdown would look like. So the Mitchell report, what's actually in that thing? The Mitchell Institute for Aerospace Studies is tied to the Air and Space Force Association, and they released this report on February 9th, 2026. Authors are relatively heavy hitters from what I can tell. Retired Colonel Mark Gunzinger, their Future Concepts Director, and Heather Pinney, Director of Studies. Bottom line, decades of cuts and delays mean the USAF can't handle nuclear deterrence, homeland defense, and beating back major aggression like China in a Taiwan grab, is what the Mitchell Institute is saying. So the big idea behind the paper, if we really boil it down, is that adversaries should be prevented from getting operational sanctuaries. They should be prevented from having Dr. Evil layers where they can launch multiple ballistic missiles from Iran. Yeah, and the point is to keep that massive buildup or to be able to schwack it. Schwack is a technical term that means take down any of those sanctuaries shall the hostilities go down. Those are protected mainland spots that can basically spit out endless air and missile strikes without penetrating stealth at scale. The Mitchell Institute is basically saying that the US loses that campaign. So basically these sanctuaries are like the People's Liberation Army of China's happy place, like in Happy Gilmore. This is where they actually feel very safe and comfortable. They're like, oh, we love this happy place. This is where we can launch 1,000 missiles towards Taiwan. Yay! And then Iran is sitting there in their happy place. It's like the Ayatollah with Mrs. Ayatollah bringing him little platters of food. And he's like, oh, babe, can you please bring me those delicious little hamburgers? Wait, I need a second. I need to launch these 1,000 ballistic missiles. Also, like in Independence Day, when you got to take the fight right to the mothership and take that thing down right in the sweet spot, right where it hurts, and be the hero. That's basically what the Mitchell Institute is telling the Air Force to do. Be the hero, build more 6th generation bombers, build more 6th generation fighters. But before we hit the shock with the numbers, let's zoom in on the adversary military we're facing. So China has this insane military buildup, which we've seen. If you've been watching my channel for a while, there's satellite imagery coming out showing that China basically has multiple Area 51 type bases. I mean, their buildup is next level. And again, when the Australian Prime Minister says, we don't know why they're not explaining to us why they're doing this military buildup. Well, when your military buildup goal is complete world domination, you're not going to be able to come out and say that. So it's funny to say like, well, we want China to give us an actual explanation. Like Australian Defense Minister, bro, come on, man. You're not going to get this exact explanation from China. The only thing you can do is stand up to them with things like what the Mitchell report is doing. Oh, the fact that J-20s and J-36s can land at little airstrips on all of our ports in Africa? No, that's just a coincidence. That's for resupply. But I get it. The Australian Defense Minister, Richard Marles, he's a politician, and he's basically just trying to get some answers. And ultimately, it's just good to bring this massive Chinese military buildup to light. He's saying that this buildup is huge, and he's right. The Chinese Air Force is exploding, potentially going to have over 1,000 combat jets by 2030, and they're blending in upgraded 4.5 generation J-16s, J-10s with fifth-ish gen jets like the J-20 stealth fighters that are already patrolling and operating in the Pacific with a massive range on those things, somewhere probably around 700 to 900 nautical mile range. That's a beast. It carries longer range missiles, which we'll get to here in a second. But again, that thing's already in the Pacific, ready to go for this Taiwan showdown should it happen. The real headaches, though, that China might throw into the mix, that they might bring to the party, they don't ever show up empty-handed, right? That's so nice of them. Just like them flying their cargo planes into Iran, dropping off little gifts, dropping off fireworks for the Iranian regime. I'm sure there's no advanced surface-to-air missiles there. But their real headache that they plan to bring to Taiwan are their 6th-gen prototypes, and they're racing those ahead every single week. Shenyang J50 seems to be one of their main ones. This is the tailless Lambda wing twin jet beast, supposedly carrier capable, relatively stealthy from what we've seen so far. Flight tests have been going on every single year. Packs AI, long range punches to potentially rival the F-47. Then there's the Chengdu J-36, that massive tri-jet, Diamond Delta, heavy tactical jet, long range air dominance, deep strikes, even commanding drone swarms for contested airspace. These are built to own the skies and deny everybody entry, protect the Taiwan Strait so that nobody can get in to protect Taiwan ultimately. And then you layer in their surface-to-air missile defenses, thousands of DF-21, DF-26 ballistic carrier killer weapons, Guam Strikers, hypersonic YJ-20s. They scream off of Type 055 destroyers, and as you can see, the Chinese Navy has been very active as of late. S-400s, HQ-9 sand batteries, turning the mainland into an impenetrable bubble, plus hypersonic cruise missiles, advanced subs, GJ-21 stealth drones. All this hardware hides in those sanctuaries. That was mentioned by the Mitchell report. They're basically sitting here saying, guys, China's building this sanctuary. All this hardware I just talked about is essentially being updated and advanced every single day, and it could churn out endless salvos that could chew through forward forces before they could even get a shot off. Mitchell's report is crystal clear. This is why we can't afford half measures when it comes to these new aircraft that are being built by the Air Force. China's packing that serious heat in their backyard, but the Mitchell report wants the US to be able to slip in and make them feel the burn. But the shock value in the report was relatively clear, and there's a reason behind that. They're trying to get action behind this. Right now, 141 total bombers in the US inventory. 20 of those are stealthy B-2s, potentially about 70 to 80%. We don't know the exact number of mission capability, but not all of those are going to be mission capable on every single day. So think 30 sorties a day, maybe it could be churned out. That's nowhere near what's needed to hit the 100,000 plus targets in a long war in Taiwan, or even just the deterrence that the bombers could do it could keep this from ever happening, and that's obviously a way better scenario. The Mitchell report says to double down, 200 B-21s minimum, 300 F-47s to go up against China's mainland sanctuary zones. Because right now they're a no-go with the S-400s, the HQ-9s, the DF-21s, 26s, carrier killers, all those different weapons Without deep penetration, the Mitchell report is saying that the US Air Force is going to be stuck with one-off raids instead of some sort of sustained denial for Taiwan. And then you tie that in to this biggest conventional military buildup since World War II. And essentially this buildup is like that guy she told you not to worry about, but it's got everybody sweating at this point. Let's talk a little bit about the B-21 Raider and why having more of these would be so valuable. That is that flying wing stealth monster, ultra low observable, 6,000 nautical mile range unrefueled. It hauls 20 plus JASSM ERs. That's massive because you're going to want standoff with these things and stand in. Standoff means you fly away from the actual surface attack missiles, you launch things, and then stand in means you can be right over top of them because you're invisible, because you're stealth. So you would want this thing to be able to do both. But why 200 of these? So currently 100 basically just replaces old bombers. And it puts us, back where we were. It doesn't really change the amount of sorties per day that can be flown. That's why the Mitchell report wants to double those and keep the B-2s flying as long as we possibly can, and then ramp up production of the B-21s to 24 per year until we hit 200. And you can pair those B-21s with collaborative combat aircraft for swarms against the SEAD forces of China. Suppression of enemy air defenses, all the different air defenses. You can basically double the mission capability of the B-21s because it pairs up with the drones. And again, when you need numbers, we need fighters and bombers right now that can pair up with these combat collaborative aircraft, like the Anduril Fury, like the Shield X-Bat. Those are what really increases the mission capability and gets all the numbers out there. So the more bombers you have that can team up with it, the better. Kind of like in Star Wars with the Death Star run, but at this point, it's the bomber out there doing the massive work in the trenches. And then the F-47, don't sleep on that bad boy, the NJAD, or what I like to call the Giga Chad, and we should probably name this thing the Giga Chad. I mean, could you imagine just having the big Giga Chad on the side of this thing as it punches through the defenses in China? That would just be a nice little slap in the face, and it would be an ultimate trump card for the Giga Chad. I mean, that meme would last forever at that point. But the combat radius of this thing, the goal would be to get it as close to 1,000 nautical miles as possible and beat the F-35 ranges, beat the F-22 ranges, and have all aspect stealth from all different angles, AI fusion, huge internal weapons bays for those massive swaths of ocean in the South China Sea, and then you scale to 300 of these because you want to be escorting those B-21s. You want to have air superiority to get the B-21s wherever you want to get them, and having the F-47s up above is going to help you actually protect those and give you the edge against China's IADS, those integrated air defense systems for you acronym lovers. And it can act as a force that leads in all the different strike packages, protects the strike packages from above, which is huge. You could do hybrid sorties as well with F-35s, with F-22s, with the F-47 basically the quarterback of the skies. It's like an Iron Man when the suit gets upgraded and the bad guys don't even see it coming. So the whole goal here is to deny sanctuaries to win the war. That's the strategic objective as we move to the 4D chess section. So imagine this, red PLA missiles are flying up, but they're being struck down and taken down by F-47s, by other assets in the area. F-47s targeting in all the different naval assets to strike down the massive amount of ballistic missiles that could be coming towards Taiwan. And then again, hypersonic weapons. So being able to launch hypersonic weapons off of the F-47 and the B-21, it makes China think a little bit more, knowing that hypersonic volleys is something that they likely can't defend against. Basically, the F-47 and B-21 could create a new Mission Impossible series. They could sneak in and blow up the whole ballistic missile operation before it even gets off the ground. So let's talk about a hypothetical situation of how it could look if China moves on Taiwan. So the People's Liberation Army Air Force would launch from their mainland sanctuaries, which they have, which are going to be really hard to destroy now that they've already launched in this hypothetical situation. Think thousands of missiles, fighters surging towards Taiwan, and then the US kicks off everything with ISR drones, advanced ISR drones that hopefully can't be shot down, like the Anduril Fury, AI X-Bat, that thing going up there and mapping all the different C2 nodes, airfields, and the factories that are deep inland, along with the different missile sites that then are passed to the B-21s and the F-47s. The B-21s ingress extremely high. They're protected by F-47s, and then F-47s are leading a swarm that's actually out in front. 100 combat collaborative aircraft that are going in to strike different missile batteries in China that would be launching against Taiwan. At this point, you unleash the Fury, and you've got enough. You've got 200 B-21 B-21s, 300 F-47s to keep sustained operations going, because you could have 10, 20, 30 F-47s at a time up and airborne, and now you need to get them down, get them refueled, get them rearmed, and the massive amount of distance they're going to have to cover. You're going to have multiple of these F-47s, way more than I think what we thought we would need. So I think the Mitchell report is onto something when it would come to some sort of sustained operation, protecting the B-21s, protecting Taiwan. Having 300 F-47s and 200 B-21s might just be the minimum number that's needed in this situation. What do you think? Do you think that this situation would go down? And what do you think would happen if we have enough B-21s and F-47s, or if we don't? Let me know in the comments below. Obviously, the situation would be wild and it wouldn't be a quick win for either side, but this is a conversation that I think needs to happen, so I'm glad the Mitchell Institute is getting it out there. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Go ahead and follow me on X, follow me on Instagram, and then I'm doing a live once a week, so click the link in the description to join the Max Ready Room, where we prepare and we get ready for what the world could be throwing at us. At this point, every single week, things are getting hotter and hotter. And then go ahead and watch this next video that pops up right here. That's pretty much the best compliment you can give me. I'll see you on this next video. This is Ryan, also known as Max Afterburner, signing off.